Hey guys, it's Logan here with Crossroad TCG, and as many of you guys know, one of the hardest parts to starting a card game is building a functional deck with a low amount of money. So today we're going to be cracking open 2 Crimson Sane starter decks and make a working deck out of just these 2 things. Now at the end of the video I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the cheaper cards that you could throw into your deck, but until then, let's get rid of this packaging. Okay, with that out of the way, let's jump right into the deck profile. So obviously, we're running the 1 leader that came with the deck, Golden Great Ape Son Goku, a pretty standard leader that's being printed. It's when this card attacks, draw a card, and then when you're at 4 or less life, you can flip this card over, restand 2 energy, and awaken. So on his backside, he's pretty cool. He says when this card attacks, draw a card, like most awakened leaders do. And then he has a permanent that says when your life is less than or equal to your opponent's life, this card gains plus 5,000 and critical during your turn. So this is really cool because when you're at an equal number of life, you get to swing for crit. And as you'll see later on in the profile, we're playing a card that gives you double strike, which works very well with crit. But he also gives you that 5k boost, so your opponent has to combo additional cards even off his just regular base attack. So he can be very strong. It might be difficult at times to manipulate your life so that it's equal, but overall, very solid leader. Now, moving on to the deck, we have a little bit of limited resources with this because we are starting with just 2 structure decks. So we are playing the 4 Dynasty Solace Chi-Chi. This is a Scry 3, and pick a Goku's Lineage from the top of your deck and add it to your hand. Got a player. She's a very good consistency card for this deck. And then next we have one of the most important cards in the deck, Adoptive Father Son Gohan. This card is the starter for all of your plays. At turn 1 he swaps for 2, so you can put him on the board and then immediately add him back to hand to start your swap engine for 1 less energy. And he's just very strong. You don't really want to put this guy on the board unless you actually have a swap target to go into. And then other than that, he's just a 5k combo power. Moving on to the 2 drops in the deck, there are 4 Intrepid Dynasty Son Gohan and 4 Dependable Dynasty Son Goku. Both of these cards are good. The Goku's a little bit bigger, but the Son Gohan actually has barrier, so he's less likely to be removed from the field. And I'm imagining that if you're able to go Adoptive Father on first turn into one of these, you're probably either going first and can't attack, or you don't really want to attack with either of these cards, and you'll probably just attack with your leader to draw a card. But again, barrier is very important in this deck because you have to constantly ladder up to get to your bigger drops. So this one is a little bit better than this one, but I'm sure that the times will come up where the 1500 attack boost, or the 1500 versus the 10k, will be relevant. Moving on to the 3 drops in the deck. So all of these cards have the swap 4 text on them, which allows you to play a 4-drop from hand. However, only this one has barrier, which means that he's going to be able to stick around a little bit better. And this one has the ability to pop a rested card when it comes into play. So both of these cards are very good on their own. This guy is a little bit weaker than the other 2. He is a swap 4, and it's when you combo with this card, if one of your yellow battle cards is being attacked, this gains plus 10k combo power. So he's a really cheap additional defensive card without having to use any energy or without having to use any life, just 15k combo power. And then for the last 3 drop, it's 3 power charge Bardock. This card's really strong in this deck. Because we don't really have a lot of the stronger swap targets, I think that this guy is really strong. And then the ability when he swings is that he gets to draw a card or gains double strike on that attack. So most of the time this guy's going to be tapped down. Unfortunately, he doesn't have the swap tag, so he can't further into your plays. However, with Progenitor Dynasty Son Goten, and why I opted to keep these in here, was that early game you're going to want to be able to put pressure on. You're going to want to swing to gain maximum advantage. And so to protect your cards that have swap on them, or this guy in general, you're going to want to be able to sometimes put that extra 15k where it's going to be very difficult for your opponent to hit that 30k mark. This card might actually be worth bumping up to more than 2, but for now I couldn't find the space because all the rest of the cards did so much. And then moving on to the 4 drops, this is where the engine gets a little bit awkward. The 2 4 drops that we're actually able to play because of the starter deck is 4 Dynasty Deferred Son Goku and 4 Plucky Dynasty Pan. Now the biggest glaring problem is that this card is your super combo. I'm imagining that there's going to be cases, there's going to be times where you have to play this with your swap effect, and if it dies, that sucks because you lose a super combo. But there's just so few 4 swap cards in this deck. Really, it kind of puts you in an awkward position because this Goku is very good because he can put pressure on, and then he restands himself and he has barrier, which is really good. This is definitely what you want out of a swap card. But then you almost never want to put these at risk because these are your big defensive plays. And then moving on to the 5 drops, because I felt so shaky on the 4 drops that we have, I only opted to play 2 of each of the 5 drops that you get in this structure deck. Both of them are very good and they both serve different purposes. The reason that I'm doing a 2-2 split is that this guy, when he comes in, he pops a card, he has barrier, double strike, so he's going to be difficult to remove. Whereas this guy is only really good as a late game finisher. I was tempted to find more room to play more of these, but instead I opted to leave these in to protect your swap cards early on. And overall, they're both really good. This guy's effect is choose 1 card from your life, add it to your hand, switch this card to active mode, and if you have 2 or less life, this card gains triple strike. So this is a really cool game ender, and he won't really come onto the board until probably turn 4 or 5. And hopefully by that point you put enough pressure on with your leader and any of your lower drops that you play in the deck, specifically this Bardock, that you'll be able to go into this guy and then swing for game. However, everything's not perfect, so I opted for this 4 count because there's only really 4 good 4 swaps in this deck, because you don't really want to use the pans too often. And so I just went with these. And then moving on to the extra cards, opted to play 4 times 10 Kamehameha. On the backside, your leader has critical. Being able to hit your opponent for double strike critical at any point is really strong. Also, the fact that it gives it a plus 15 during the battle is pretty good too. So if you have any energy up, this is better than just a regular combo. This card is better than a 110k combo because it gives your leader 15. You'll be able to hit 30k numbers and survive more attacks. So it's pretty good. And then the other extra card that we play is 4 instant transmission. This card is amazing. Because of the nature of the swap deck is to constantly tap out in order to put threats on the board and to move up your chain, you're going to be tapped out a lot. So this card is really a godsend for this kind of deck, because when you are tapped out, instead of just simply taking the hit, you can instead take a life to activate this card, so it both self-awakens and prevents you from dying. So if your opponent's swinging with big drops that are doing double strike or critical or anything for game, and you just want to keep your cards, you can activate this. You can use these early game in order to help you awaken a little bit faster, and overall it's just a really good card.
So that's it for the main deck. A few cards that you could add to your deck that won't really break the bank are Successor of Hope, which is a 0-drop, which allows you to choose up to 1 Goku's Lineage with an energy cost of 5 or less, and swap and add it from your deck to your hand. So a really solid consistency card. Also, there's Discovered Dynasty Son Gohan. As I talked about, there's that issue with not having very many good 4-drop swap 5 cards. This card is fantastic for that. It has barrier, and when you swap into it, you draw 2, so it gives you tons of advantage. Another card you could play is Height of Mastery Son Goku. This would serve as your 8-drop finisher in the deck, but this card is really good because it has Deflect, Triple Strike, and Dual Attack. So you get to attack twice for Triple Strike. And when it's played with Swap, you get to choose up to 3 of your opponent's battle cards or energy, ignoring barrier, and switch them to rest mode. So it allows you to tap down their energy and tap down their blockers so that you can just do massive amounts of damage for game. Another consistency card that you could play is Planet Vegeta. 1-drop, field spell card, and when you play it, you get to add a Saiyan with 4 or less from your deck to your hand. So that can be any swap card that you need. It can be your super combo. Just a really solid consistency card you might consider playing in your deck. And for the last of the budget options, you have the option to play Unwavering Solidarity Shugesh, which can help out the swap strategy a lot because it can cheat out a 3-drop onto your board, which would make it much easier for you to progress through your swap engine. However, it isn't Goku's Lineage, so it can be a little bit difficult to search to hands, and your opponent might also be playing Krinoa to turn it off. So probably run this at 2 if you're going to play it. And lastly, for a little bit more of an expensive card, but that is extremely vital to the deck if you want to make it as competitive as possible, would be Bardock the Progenitor. It is a 1-drop, swap 2, and when you play it, you choose a card in your life to add it to hand. So it allows you to awaken really easily. It's got swap 2, just like the Grandpa Gohan, but he has a 10k body, so he can put on pressure early game and then swap back to hand to progress your lineage. Unfortunately, this card is in the $20 to $30 range, so if you've got the money to spend on it, I would recommend it, but if not, I think you'll be fine with the other options that I listed beforehand. Thanks so much for watching this video. I've been Logan here with Crossworld TCG, and stay tuned for the Guardians of Namekian starter deck breakdown, where I'll build the deck again out of 2 starter decks. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Subscribe for more content from us, and take care.